Jamie Nicole Peterson in 2011 was a mother who adored her two children. She encouraged them to do good in school and be well-rounded with extracurricular activities. She was a very involved mom. Jamie had also worked hard to become an auto mechanic, a non-traditional career for a woman, but Jamie loved working on cars. This was a trait she had picked up early on from her father, and it allowed her to provide for her two children. In the spring of 2011, Jamie had to have knee surgery and would go on workers' comp to make ends meet for a while. In early September of 2011, Jamie and her live-in boyfriend had an argument, and she made him leave the house. On September 26th, a few weeks later, Jamie took her two children to school and then went grocery shopping. She was supposed to pick her kids up after school that afternoon at swim team practice. However, when swim practice ended that day, Daisy Peterson couldn't find her mom anywhere. Jamie Nicole Peterson hasn't been seen or heard from since. Where is Jamie Peterson? Hello, and welcome to this bonus episode of the Where Are They podcast. Thank you all so much for being here and supporting our show and mission. As a reminder, I know I mentioned this on our main podcast, but proceeds this month are going to Texas EquiSearch in honor of Kyle Rugg. Today's story, the case of Jamie Nicole Peterson, is one that isn't too far from me, at least geographically. So I was really surprised that I hadn't heard of her case before. Jamie Peterson grew up in the Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania area, and even though she had moved out of the area a couple of times, in 2011 she was back in Ross Township, which sits right next to the Pittsburgh city limits, basically Pittsburgh. She was an attentive mom to two kids, and she always encouraged them to do well in school, to take part in extracurriculars, and just to take time to enjoy life. Jamie had also gone to school and received a degree in auto mechanics, definitely a non-traditional job for a woman, but she really enjoyed working on cars, and I have to say, I think it's awesome that she followed her passion, and I think it sets a wonderful example for her kids. Jamie's father had really liked working on cars too, and she definitely got her passion for it from him. In early of 2011, Jamie was working at a car dealership. Something would happen in the spring, however, and an injury at work caused her to have to get knee surgery. She also went on workers' comp during this time and would be out of work for a while. Jamie lived in a home on North Fremont Street in Ross Township with her live-in boyfriend and her two kids. Her kids in 2011 were 11 years old and 12 years old. It really was the perfect location for her because her mother lived right down the street from them and was able to help out with the kids a lot, and they were just overall a really close family anyway. In early September of 2011, Jamie and her boyfriend had a fight. Not just any fight, a big fight. He ended up moving out, and Jamie would actually get a restraining order against him. On Monday, September 26th, Jamie took the kids to school. She then went grocery shopping at the local Giant Eagle store, and then she returned home. She was still on workers' comp, so she didn't have work. And the plan was that later that afternoon, she would pick up her kids at swim team practice. This was a normal Monday for all of them. Daisy, who was 12 years old at the time, said her mom was almost always early to pick them up, and she remembers that she would see her mom waiting and watching the end of practice all the time. But she noticed that day that her mom wasn't there early. And in fact, her mom never showed up at all. She started calling her mom repeatedly, but the calls just kept going to voicemail. Daisy finally called her grandma, who came and got the kids to take them home. Daisy, her brother, and her grandmother arrived at their home on North Fremont Street, and everything looked normal. Jamie's car was parked in the driveway, and the house and car were both locked up. But Jamie wasn't home, which didn't make any sense. Where would Jamie be without taking her car? There were no stores or anything really local within walking distance. Plus, Jamie had a knee injury, and no one believed that she would be out walking anyway. So she must have left the house with someone. They looked around in the house and they did find that it looked like her purse and cell phone were missing, but they could tell that she had gone grocery shopping that day, as the groceries she had purchased were still in the home. So where was Jamie Peterson? She had never missed picking up her children before from swim team practice. This just didn't make any sense. Jamie's mom and the kids' grandma, Darlene, reported Jamie missing to the police, and police did start looking into the case, but they really didn't have any clues to go on. They also had claimed that Jamie had disappeared once before, 8 years earlier, in fact, and were concerned that she probably had just taken off again. However, the family has vehemently denied that ever happened like the police said it did 8 years earlier, that Jamie had never been a missing person before. And they were really worried, especially in the beginning, that fact was keeping the police from investigating her case to the fullest extent. Police start talking to neighbors and interviewing people in the area that may have seen or knew Jamie. And some neighbors did tell police that they saw Jamie's ex-boyfriend over the house that day. They said that they saw him and Jamie talking to each other in the front yard. They also said that Jamie did not get in the car and leave with him, at least as far as they could see. So investigators do go question this ex-boyfriend, of course, and he admitted he did go over there that day, but he said it was just to collect the rest of his belongings, his clothing, and personal items from the house. But he also said that he left the home right after, and Jamie was still there when he left, which does kind of coincide with what the neighbors had thought happened. The police do put in an order to ping Jamie's cell phone, and they get the results pretty quickly. The last signal from Jamie's phone came from a cell tower near Northview Heights housing complex. And the pings came in that night after she had disappeared. So her phone was still on into the night on the night of September 26th. Police did go search that area near Northview Heights, as did a private search party led by Jamie's father, Jim Peterson, but nothing was found. They found no clues. Jamie's father and other family members and friends step up and organize more searches, concentrating on the area that her cell phone had pinged at and the Bellevue area. Occasionally, they would find a random item, a pair of glasses, a flip-flop, but nothing that could ever be linked definitely to Jamie. Meanwhile, the two children went on to live with their grandmother while praying every day that their mother would be found and brought back to them. But searches would continue to lead nowhere. And slowly, as people in the area start to hear about Jamie's disappearance, people do start coming forward with information about Jamie's ex-boyfriend. It seems that in addition to previous assault and battery charges, neighbors have said he was a very angry guy, starting fights and arguments over things as trivial as their trash cans. Police have also said that they do have a couple of persons of interest that they are looking at, but that they need more evidence. And while the ex-boyfriend seems to be a likely person of interest here, which is pretty typical in all cases like these, we don't know anyone else that might be. The father of her children was no longer in the picture, and nobody was concerned that he was involved in any way. In January of 2012, there would be an arrest made in Ross Township that did get people talking and wondering. Arthur Lamont Henderson was arrested and charged with raping 2 women in Ross Township. He would also go on to be charged with a 3rd rape that happened in another nearby town. So people started talking. This was just 4 months after Jamie vanished. Could he possibly be connected to her case? Arthur's victims, however, were still around to testify against him. So we really don't know. Could he have been responsible for Jamie Peterson's disappearance? It didn't really seem likely, but people were still talking and wondering. Arthur would also go on to be convicted and sentenced to 61 to 122 years in prison. Ross Township sits just next to Pittsburgh city limits and has a population of around 30,000. Jamie and her family lived on North Fremont Street in Ross, which actually has a Pittsburgh mailing address. We are talking about a city, a populated area. You would really have to leave the greater Pittsburgh area to get to more rural areas where people could be hiding or do something that might not be seen by others. And there are a lot of rural areas outside of the Pittsburgh area. And North Fremont Street itself is also just about a mile to the Ohio River. But again, that's a populated part of the river area. So what are the possibilities here? Possibility number 1. I think the main thought process in the case of Jamie Peterson always goes to the ex-boyfriend. If he's innocent of any wrongdoing, the timing of their breakup is very unfortunate for him. Just a few weeks before Jamie disappears, they have a huge fight and she gets a restraining order against him. I mean, it doesn't look good for him. He also has a history of some violent behavior, and he was the person that was last seen with Jamie. Also, not good. But there's no evidence, at least that the police have alluded to the public. But some do think that they have a lot more information than they have said, and I really hope that's true, because as far as suspects go, we don't know much. Possibility number 2. Someone else is responsible for Jamie's disappearance. Maybe Arthur, maybe someone completely different. No one, and I mean no one, thinks Jamie would have left on her own. And she wasn't struggling or depressed as far as anyone knew. And not to mention her children were her world. No one thinks for a second that she would have left them. So if it wasn't her boyfriend and she wouldn't have left on her own, it had to be someone else. And since her car was at the house, she must have gotten into someone's car. But there's just so many questions here, such as, was it someone she knew? Surely she wouldn't get into someone else's car, someone that she didn't know. And whatever happened must have happened in daylight hours, since it happened while the kids were at school. Their mom was there in the morning, but gone by the afternoon. No matter what, this is a family that needs and deserves some answers. Authorities have said this case is still very much an active case and has never been considered a cold case. They continue to work leads, and they do admit the circumstances of Jamie Peterson's disappearance are very suspicious. Jamie Peterson is described as a Caucasian female, 5'3" tall, with shoulder-length brown highlighted hair and green eyes. Jamie also wears eyeglasses. The frames she had at the time are black frames with pink speckles. She also does have several tattoos, which include a purple rose on her left breast, a cross with the name Elijah on her left shoulder blade, a large purple bear on her left upper arm, and a daisy with the word Daisy on her right shoulder blade. She also has a large butterfly on the back of her neck. Police have continued to say multiple times they just need that one tip that can give them answers. Ross Township detective had this to say to WPXI News. We have narrowed the case to some degree and have located some people that we think are possibly involved. We have most of the puzzle pieces that we need, but we are just missing a few to finally bring this to justice. So again, we're asking anyone from the public, if you have any information or knowledge, we would love to hear from you. End quote. That certainly seems hopeful, and I really hope that they do find that missing puzzle piece that they're looking for. Anyone with information on the disappearance of Jamie Nicole Peterson is asked to contact the Ross Township Police Department at 412-931-9070, extension 148. I'd really like to see her case get more attention, which can hopefully lead to some answers and closure for Jamie's family. Thank you all so much for listening to Jamie's story today. We will be back again next week with another unsolved missing person case. And until then, stay safe and hug your loved ones.